And we got further. We were further down. We got to page. We got to page 100.
102 now.
I don't think so. I don't think so. 100. And good morning. Good morning. So the Rebbe Rashab here is now describing the person who davens, and the feelings that are generated during davening is feelings of humility and merirus. And again, as we explained yesterday, merirus, bitterness, is not a feeling which should be confused with sadness or depression. These are the things that are totally unacceptable in Chassidus. They don't belong anywhere in our Avodah. There's no room for this Avodah. I mean, except for where, according to halacha, like in the time of Tisha B'Av and things like that. But generally speaking, merirus is a feeling where a person feels distant from Hashem, and the feeling is a kind of feeling that generates within the person a very strong, intense desire and drive to come closer. So where does that come from? So he said that comes from being mizbeinen. How is he doing in his thought and speech and action? And even if he's doing everything right, the question is he doing it the way he should be doing it according to his capacity, according to his standards. So in order to explain what that means, the term in Hebrew is kidaboy l'mahavi, the way it's supposed to be. And that phrase applies to every person differently. A child is a child, and an adult is an adult. And every adult is different. They have different intellectually, they're different emotionally, different natures, different backgrounds, different life experience. So different circumstances. Not everybody's the same. Just like with tzedakah, the same amount of money for one person, that person would be applauded for giving so much money, really going out of his way. And for another person, the same amount of money might be considered not something to compliment, but on the contrary, it's actually something which would be a fault and something wrong with his tzedakah, because according to the amount of money that he has, he should have been given so much more. So too with learning and davening and mitzvahs, everybody according to their capacity. In order to explain that better, so he says that when a person does a mitzvah, there's two kavanas. One is the kavana klolis, a general kavana, and that is to serve Hashem, regardless of the details. And the other is each mitzvah has in it a certain kavana, that the mitzvah is designed to refine me in a certain area, in one of my character traits. And each mitzvah in that sense is different. And these are the two things a person should be focusing on when he does mitzvahs. Thinking, I'm doing something now, which is bringing me closer to Hashem. I'm doing something now, which is an expression of me accepting Hashem's sovereignty. And I'm doing something now, which is going to help me refine this aspect of my character, that aspect of my character. And depending on how much a person sort of goes deeply into this, that will make his act of a mitzvah much more effective, more enhanced. Again, according to halacha, if a person does a mitzvah and doesn't think about any of these things, put on the tefillin, I put up the mezuzah, I shake the lulav and esrog, I have performed the mitzvah. On the other hand, the person who has the deepest kavanas, 10 times more than what's written here, but doesn't actually put on the tefillin or put up the mezuzah or eat the matzah, then he has not fulfilled what Hashem wants. So, of course, let's always remember, Hamaisa Hua Iker, the main thing is action, but what enhances the action is the kavanah. And that's what he's talking about. So now we're on top of page 100. First, he explained how everything has a very specific kavanah. Let's start with the middle of the line on the top of the page 100. There's probably more svarim here if anybody needs. Then there's another kavanah, klolis, a general kavanah, which is the same kavanah. This is what's common in all mitzvahs. This is a thread that goes through every single mitzvah. So when we do a mitzvah, we're in a sense expressing our acceptance of Hashem's malchus, and that's also expressed in the bracha we make on a mitzvah. Baruch atah Hashem. And what am I saying? Elokeinu, you are my God. Melech ha'olam, you're the king of the whole universe. So every time I do a mitzvah, it's an expression of me saying, Hashem, you are my king, and I am submitting myself to your sovereignty. Commissioner Kozba say we shall be in Perik Mamalev 41 in Tanya. He talks about both of these kavanas. Now he goes on to say, what does it mean not doing mitzvahs the way it should be? But if a person doesn't do the mitzvah with these kavanas, with this intention, and it does the mitzvah in a cold way, there's no warmth, there's no excitement, there's no chayas. These words, mitzvahs anoshim ulamada, it's probably in that sheet where we have the terms, but this is something which is lashon that comes from a place in Tanakh. In the bottom, they probably have the reference. And it means to do mitzvahs just as a matter of habit, especially someone who has been doing this all his life. So it becomes a habit. There's not much thought and feeling and emotion and chayas that goes into it. So even though they're actually performing the mitzvah, but it's not the way it should be. That's in general. And especially so the more he thinks about the greatness of Hashem, the more he thinks about Hashem is exalted, and I am davening to him, and I'm doing his mitzvah, the more he thinks about that, even if he does the avodah in a true way, he'll feel that it's koloi mamish, that my what I'm doing is like insignificant when I think that I'm serving a Eibishter who is infinite, and Melech Malchei Hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And the more I think about his greatness, the more I feel that what I'm doing is like doesn't match up to who the person, the one that I'm serving. It would even be considered the opposite of something good. Even when I'm serving Hashem in a true way, it still would be considered insignificant when I think of who I'm serving. That would be considered a chet, which literally should means a sin. How could it be? You're serving Hashem, you're serving him truthfully, but when you think of the one that you're serving, then you feel that what you're doing doesn't do justice to what you want to do. For example, a king who was a great and awesome king. I guess awesome king and great king probably measures according to the kingdom. They can have a country, let's say, of 500,000 people, and the country has a king who's looked upon as a king. A great king is someone that has not 500,000 people, but let's say 10 million people, 50 million people. Or what about a king that, like Achashverosh, that ruled over every country in the world, a Shlomo HaMelech? So such a king, the greatness of the king, the awesomeness of the king is so much more than an ordinary king. A person serves him, but not in a way that fits his stature, that he's this great Melech Gadol B'Neira. It's actually demeaning when you do that. Kikol avoda, every avoda that you serve someone, it should be in proportion to the one that you're serving, which means you can't compare if you're serving an ordinary person or Melech Gadol. And therefore, if I will serve a Melech Gadol, a big, awesome king, the same way that I serve an ordinary person, that would be like disrespectful. It means mashpil kved, it's if you're demeaning his honor. Just to give an example of this. So there's one example which comes up often, but I'll mention it again because it's so relevant to this. And that is the story with Rabbi Saadia Gaon, the famous story, when the student asks him, how is it that they hear him saying, Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu, I sinned. How could you say these words? You know, even someone who is humble, but humble doesn't mean that you're lying. You can't say this about yourself. And he told him that I learned to do tshuva from a simple innkeeper. And he told the story that he was traveling and he saw this, came to this inn. The innkeeper treated him very nicely. He gave him food, he gave him bedding, he gave him a nice, comfortable room. He took care of everything that he needed. But he had no idea that this is Rabbi Saadia Gaon, who in that generation was the greatest tzaddik of the generation. From all over the world, he was the one to ask a question that you needed to know an answer. And because they had no pictures in those days like we have today, they knew the name, but not the face. And after being there a few days, the innkeeper walks outside, as usual, and he takes a look and he's shocked. There's a few hundred people standing outside. And he asked them, what are you doing here? What's going on? Why is everybody gathered here? I said, you don't know? Rabbi Saadia Gaon is in your, apparently someone found out, spread the word, and they all came to greet him. And when Rabbi Saadia Gaon came out to greet the crowd, he fell to his feet, was crying bitterly and begging for forgiveness. And he said to him, what are you asking for forgiveness for? You gave me food, and you gave me bedding, you gave me a room, it was warm. Everything that I needed and I wanted, I got. What are you so hysterical about? And his answer was, had I known that it was you, I would have done it entirely in a different way. Basically meaning he did everything right, but he served him the way he served all his customers. And to serve all his customers is one way, but when you're serving someone like Rabbi Saadia Gaon, it should be on a whole different level. So it felt like it was actually disrespectful that I treated you like I would treat a regular person. We all know the story that Baal Shem Tov used to learn with Achi Ashiloni. I'm not sure if you made a point of this one detail, but just to give you an example, Baal Shem Tov writes, he wrote this down and he sent it, and we have this document. The Rebbe has the actual writing where he wrote that how did it all start? It was on a Shabbos. He had a dream. First, it was Friday afternoon. He went to the mikveh. When he used to go into the mikveh, under the water, he had his eyes open. And he saw the image of a person. And he told him that tomorrow, after Shabbos, I say, I want to meet you in this place, and we'll be learning together. And the Baal Shem Tov was like in shock. I think the night before he had a dream which was similar, but he sort of dismissed it. After he saw this in the mikveh, he saw this is not so simple. And then again, he had another dream, and he said, this is not a dream. This is not, something which is just an imagination. I'll meet you tomorrow near this mountain, this and this time, Sunday morning. And he went out, and there was somebody, which was, he didn't know who it was. But obviously, the Baal Shem Tov, with his greatness, right away recognized that this is a very big tzaddik. And he took his hand and he led him to, by the way, took his hand, he was 26 years old. He took his hand and he led him to a cave. In the cave, there was already 2 chairs prepared. And he took out a sefer from his pocket and they were learning together. And the Baal Shem Tov said that his eyes lit up. He never heard and saw such depth in Torah and such light in Torah. And he only learned for an hour and said, this is enough for the first time. And we'll meet tomorrow again. And before they parted, Baal Shem Tov said to him, and who are you? Apparently he knew it's not Iyar Navi because he must have met Iyar Navi before. So he said to him, with time you'll know who I am. And they learned together for a year and he didn't know who he was. After the year was over, before they said goodbye, he learned with him for 10 years, but this is after the first year, and they were parting just for that day. He said to him, I am Achi Ashiloni. Achi Ashiloni is one of the people in Tanakh. He was a Navi, He lived in the times of Yetzias Mitzrayim. One of the people went out of Mitzrayim. He lived for a few hundred years, and he was the Rebbe of Eliyahu Hanavi. When the Baal Shem Tov heard who it was, he fainted. Apparently, he woke him up. But I'm saying, imagine you're with someone, and you realize that it's a great tzaddik. You're learning very deep things in Torah. You're experiencing amazing spiritual experiences, and you're fine. Then when you hear, oh, this is Achia Shilaini, boom, you faint. Because it's a whole different level. It's a whole different level of awe. And the same thing is with love. It's a whole different level of love when you realize who you're serving. And that's what he says, that when you serve a great, great king in a way which is somebody, I once gave this class, I always look for a good example. There was a student in the class that gave an interesting example. And that is today, people make events, a little party, a Sheva Brachas, a bris, and they put down cutlery and they put down plates, and it's beautiful. It looks like it's real china, but you know what it is? It's a disposable thing, but it's beautiful. Imagine that a king is coming to you. Instead of putting down real china, you buy this disposable stuff. That would be disrespectful. Okay, it's nice for a bris and a Sheva Brachas, for Yasel, Baruch, Shmerel, and Getzel, but to put it down for a melech, you have to put down something much richer than that. So not only that this is not sort of what you should have been doing, but when you do something like that, it's an act of disrespect. You're not recognizing this is a king. So in Avodah, that's what it means, that what he's saying here, that sometimes you could be doing something, you're doing it right, you're having kavanah, but in proportion to who you're serving, it should have been much more, much deeper, much greater. And what you're doing is even considered a chet. By the way, this explains a question that maybe you've had before. I don't remember ever talking about it. But one of the big things that sometimes come into a sort of discussion, a debate between Chassidim and others, is that, is it true that tzaddikim do averos or not? A person who's a tzaddik, like Avraham Avinu, Yitzchak, Yaakov, Moshe Rabbeinu, do they do averos? Could they do averos or not? Anyone who learned Tanya knows that Moshe Rabbeinu, even a person who's a Beinoni, which is way, way miles from Moshe Rabbeinu, doesn't do one avera, not in thought, not in speech, not in action. A tzaddik Shena Gomer is a whole different caliber. A tzaddik Gomer is altogether different caliber. But yet there are plenty of people that'll tell you, no. There's stories in the Chumash where Moshe did avera and was punished, Yaakov did an avera, Avraham Avinu did an avera. And then there's the famous quote in Gemara which says that Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechta. Not sure this is it's a pasuk or it's a Maimon Chazal. Could be it's even a pasuk. Ein tzaddik ba'aretz asher yaseh tov v'lo yechta. There is no such thing as a tzaddik that does only good and doesn't do any sin. So clearly, tzaddikim also do sins.
Isn't it like, to us, it's like not a sin, but like for on their level, it could be something like.
Right. So that's the obvious answer. If I would be doing that, it wouldn't be a sin. But for them to do that, because they're on a higher level, much more is expected. But again, if more is expected, it's still not okay.
Right.
Like I said before, if the man who is a billionaire gives $1,000 for tzedakah, it's still not right, even though it's a lot of money. So the answer that's given in Chassidus is that the word for sin could be chet, oven, avera. There's different terms. The word chet has another meaning, and actually Rashi Chumash brings it down, that chet means lacking. And Rashi brings a pasuk that kalei ala sayre v'lo yechta, where it says a person he was able to shoot an arrow into the target v'lo yechta, and he didn't miss. It didn't miss the target even for even the hairline, but right where it's supposed to go. So it means if something's lacking a little bit, that's the definition of chet, and that's what it means. But still, it means that he's lacking. It means he's not doing his job right. So the answer is based on what we just said here. Every person, a tzaddik does his avodah complete. But like Rabbi Saadia Gaon said, the next day, I never gave the conclusion. Rabbi Sajigon said, every day I learn more about Hashem. I understand His greatness on a whole new level. But I say to myself, had I known yesterday the way I know Hashem today, I never would have served Him yesterday the way I did. So it's not that he did something wrong and didn't even do something wrong according to his level. It means that every day as we grow, there's always going to be something incomplete because Hashem is infinite. One of the examples you can think of is a very interesting example. We all have that. If you light 3 candles on Hanukkah on the 3rd night, is it good or is it no good? Is the 3rd night of Hanukkah and you light 3 candles. Is that okay or not?
Yeah.
Anything wrong with it? If you light 3 candles on the 4th night,
Yeah.
how come yesterday was okay, today not? Because it's the 4th night. Oh, now 4 candles, now everything is great. The 5th night, now 4 candles are no good. What happened? It was okay yesterday. Sorry, it's a new day, 5th night. In other words, same as with the tzaddik, every day there's growth. And it means according to this new day and my new level of growth, what I did yesterday is lacking. And being that Hashem is infinite, you'll never reach a point where say, it's perfect, there's no more room for growth. It's not possible. But not chas v'sholem that he does anything wrong. What about all the stories? So it's not the time to go into it, but you must have learned sichas where there's so much more depth to these stories and different meaning to the stories. It's not that they chas v'sholem violate Hashem's will, because a tzaddik gomer, like David HaMelech, Shlomo HaMelech, and all these tzaddikim, definitely didn't do the averas that it appears to be on the surface. If you don't learn Chassidus and you look at things just superficially, it's almost like it's inevitable. Look what they did, because you don't know a deeper meaning to those words. We just had in Tanya where it says that the period before this one, where it says that Yaakov is the attribute of rachamim, compassion, and Rachel is the attribute of malchus. And if you remember, the Alter Rebbe says that it says Yaakov kissed Rachel and he cried. This was the compassion that was nimshach from rachamim to malchus and so on and so forth. So you say that someone who was having this debate with the chassid, do tzaddikim do averis? Are they human? They have human desires like everybody else. And he says, look, it says, hey, Yaakov kissed Rachel. So you see what was going on. So he said, yeah, but you know what Alter Rebbe says in Tanya? This was a hamshacha of spirits from rachamim from here. So guys, listen, but literally, this is what it says. It says, oh, now I understand why Yaakov was crying. Because he saw in the future that people interpret what happened as something very literal and very gross, like everybody else. So, of course, the stories in Chumash were written, even Hashem is written in a very sort of on the surface, literal way. Hashem got angry, Hashem takes revenge, Hashem lifted his right hand. Then we learned there's no hands, there's no feet, there's no eyes, there's no ear, that's all metaphoric. So, but if look, literally, everything could be misinterpreted, chas v'shalom. And we're always taught to realize there's more depth to it. And the same is with the tzaddikim. So, with this analogy, we'll understand the same with our relationship with Hashem. Yes?
In the beginning, I forget which artist, what we were talking about, like the 2 different ideas and how we focus on Yesh Ma'ayin and it'll come to serve Hashem through like Simcha, and the miss is through Iyar. But this is for someone who is like doing all good. It's not for like the Avodah of a tzaddik. It's the Avodah of Bani. Like who are we talking about?
First of all, this could even be, it could even be for a tzaddik. Like Rabbi Sajigon, I don't give the the certificates and the diplomas for tzaddikim, beinim and tzaddik gomer, but I would imagine that he was probably a tzaddik gomer. He was probably the nasi of that generation. He was the tzaddik of the generation. But and if that's the case, nevertheless, he's saying about himself, had I known Hashem the way I know today, I would have served him more. So this avodah could be for every person. Like the story of the Baal Shem Tov, he respected the one who he was learning with. I guarantee you, 100,000%. There's a similar thing with the Frierdiker Rebbe. Once said out of Fabrengen that Zritcha Magid once said something which is like it just blows you away when you think of it. what did he say? That the Baal Shem Tov now, meaning now, after all these years of his passing, now he understands the greatness of Abbas Yisrael so much more than he understood before. Had he known what Abbas Yisrael is then, the way he knows what is now, he would have done things totally on a different level. And the Friedrich Rebbe said it's very hard to understand such a statement because the Abbas Yisrael of Baal Shem Tov was already unlimited, unconditional. And he told a story to give an example. Why he chose that story, I don't know. But he chose a story which you probably heard, different versions, but this is in a sikha, so this is authentic. And the Rebbe repeated the story and gave a commentary on the story. That the story was that there was a Yid whose name was Rabbi David, a very simple Jew, a very poor Jew, and he had a strong desire to do the mitzvah of Esrog in the most beautiful way. But to buy a beautiful Esrog cost a lot of money. So he put away penny by penny by penny to buy the Esrog. And I don't know whether it was accumulated after a year or after a few years. He finally had enough money to pay for and buy a real beautiful Esrog. And even that, to go buy the Esrog, he had to travel somewhere, and he had no money for the traveling. He had to walk, and it was very difficult. But eventually, he did it all, and he bought this beautiful Esrog, and his heart was just jumping out of his body. He couldn't contain the excitement. And he walked into his house, and he tells his wife, "Look at this beautiful Esrog. His face is radiant, and he's shining, and his face is beaming." And of course, the wife had a different reaction, and she said, "You're kidding. We're struggling with bread and butter and eggs and milk for the children, and you're buying yourself a beautiful esrog." And the esrog had a pitum. Pitum was like a little thing on top. She grabbed the esrog and she bit off the pitum on top, and it became puzzle. Ouch. You can try to imagine what some ordinary husband would do in such a case. How would he react? What would happen? And he said to himself, "Yeah, I guess you're right. I probably don't deserve to have a beautiful esrog." Okay. He said to himself, "Listen, I lost my esrog. I'm not going to lose my temper. And I'll make a bracha on the community esrog." Wow. He had no money left to buy even a simple esrog. Even the community esrog, this is how poor he was. He had no money for community esrog, so he had to take an item from his house, give it into, I think it's called a pawn shop. You take the item, they give you money, and with that little bit of money, he was able to be a partner in the esrog. Baal Shem Tov said, I messed up the story, but I'll tell you now from backwards. What happened was that the Baal Shem Tov was not in a very happy state of mind as he usually is. And the students of the Baal Shem Tov, which were great tzaddikim, did everything they can to change that. We're talking about the Mezritch Magid, Reb Nachum Chernobyl, these themselves were giants. Everything they did didn't work. Nothing they did work. And then suddenly, the simple Jew walks in, and the Baal Shem Tov's face transforms. And he's smiling, calls him over, takes his becher, gives him some wine, gives him a piece of challah. And the students are sitting there. These are great tzaddikim, but they're still sitting, and they're like baffled. How could this be? I mean, we did everything, and nothing had an effect on his frame of mind. And this simple Jew walks in, and Baal Shem Tov knew what they were thinking. So he asked him, he gave him an errand to do something. And when he left the room, he said, "Let me tell you who this person is." And he told this story. And the Baal Shem Tov said that, this is what it says in the Sikha, that the Eibishter didn't have such pleasure from the fact that he restrained himself and contained himself not to lose his temper, since the Akedah, Avraham Avinu restrained and contained his attribute of love to do the Akedah of Yitzchak. So the Friedrich Rebbe says, and now we're saying that had he known Abbas Yisrael the way he does it now, he would do it even on a greater level. What could be greater than that? Than the way he conducted himself, the love that he showed, and the way he extended himself to simple people that were nowhere near anything of his Talmidim. So this is the answer. Godliness is infinite, and no matter how much you know and how much you understand and how much you appreciate today, you can appreciate more tomorrow. So it applies to all people, even great tzaddikim.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Isn't that like with everything? Like everything's 20/20 hindsight. Like if I knew before what I know now, I would have done things different.
Right. So if you remember what I said, I've taken the example of Hanukkah. When I light 4 candles on the 4th day, I don't say, I feel terrible, I only lit 3 yesterday. I know that yesterday I did the right thing. It's only today that I grew another day, and it's another day Hanukkah, and we need to light 4 candles. Same thing with the tzaddik. He didn't feel that, I did something wrong yesterday. He just realizes the avodah I served him yesterday was not up to par with his greatness, and therefore he desires today. He tries that motivates him to reach a higher level on today. According to the greatness and the awesomeness of Hashem, which is infinite, page 102. It's so, Hashem is so infinite that it's unfathomable. We can't understand it. Oh, here's the answer. We don't have to think so long. Even the greatest tzaddikim, it's still not in proportion to the infinite and awesome greatness of Hashem. And he says, and this is why every person, even tzaddikim, say the Ashamnu in Aseres Meitshuva. Gam tzaddik gomer. Here's our answer. Even a tzaddik gomer, Kamesh Rabbeinu Olav Hashalom. Hayat Sarach Laima Viduyim Aseres Meitshuva. So if anyone gets a thought, maybe I shouldn't say this because Baruch Hashem, I'm okay. I don't do anything wrong. So it's okay to be like Moshe Rabbeinu at least. And the reason is, how could Moshe Rabbeinu say that? Because in comparison to Hashem's greatness and Hashem's exaltedness, even true avodah which is done with the depth of the heart and true, still it doesn't justify, it doesn't do justice when you think of who it is that you are serving. Imagine if you meet someone that you respect, haven't seen them for a long time, and when you see them, you walk over, you shake their hands, maybe embrace them. I'm so happy to see you. This is beautiful. If somebody would do that to the Rebbe, it would be disrespectful. Same thing, but it depends to whom. And this is the meaning of what our sages say in reference to Moshe Rabbeinu. There's a pasuk. Moshe Rabbeinu bowed down to the ground, which means he bowed down and came down to the ground. What happened? What caused him to have such humility that suddenly he bowed down to the ground? And the Gemara answers, Midas emes ra. He saw the attribute of truth. And who could stand before Hashem's truth? What does it mean? What does that mean? It means he saw the truth of Hashem's presence, which is infinite. And then he realized that whether I'm serving him is so insignificant to his greatness. Once you think of it this way, you might as well say, so what's the point? I can't serve him anyway. Whatever I do is not really proper, and it doesn't do justice to serving Hashem, so I might as well just relax. So he's going to address that question now. This is just a reference. So we look in that mimer for that year. And over there explains more about this detail. So now the answer to this question, if that's the case, what's the purpose of me serving him? If any way I can't serve him properly, Chazal say, the pasuk shir a kesef. The pasuk shir a kesef, which is in our parsha actually, and page 104, that it says, the Medrash says how Hashem is different than a king of flesh and blood. A king of flesh and blood often demands things of his people that he himself doesn't do, but he demands it of others. The Hashem is like this. When it comes to giving us, he gives us according to his capacity. When it comes to demand of us, he demands of us according to our capacity. In other words, normally people, a king or any person who is in a situation where his capacity financially or intellectually or any other level is so much greater, they don't understand someone who is less than them. And that's why very often they make demands, they They don't understand other people's shortcoming because they don't have it. Very often you find people like that. They're brilliant. What do you mean you don't understand? It's so simple. The person knows what you're talking about. Because to them, it's simple. What do you mean you couldn't do it? Just pick yourself up and you do it. I remember I was once speaking to a principal in a school. There was a problem with a child. They wasn't getting up on time. And the mother asked me to intervene. I spoke to the principal. And I said, he has a very hard time getting up in the morning. It's really difficult for him. What do you mean it's hard? Just get up. Good question. What do you mean it's hard? Just get up. Because to him, it's no big deal. He's totally disciplined and he can just get up when you have to get up. There are people that have a hard time getting up. There are people that have a hard time doing this mitzvah or that mitzvah. For other people, it's simple. So Hashem is, on one hand, infinite. And therefore, when he gives us according to his capacity. But when he asks us to do something, he does it according to our capacity. So we know if something, Rabbi always says this to people, if this is expected of you, you surely have the ability and the capacity to do it. Just have more trust and confidence in yourself and you'll succeed. If you really go according to the absolute, sort of the highest level, nobody could do a perfect avodah. So Hashem only asks us to do avodah be'emes shaloi. It should be truthful according to my capacity, as far as I can go. So then the other question, if that's the case, how could the person feel humbled by this, or feel that I didn't do enough if I did according to my capacity? Yes.
Does the capacity be like increased, like for my avodah, or it's like
No, we're always striving to do more, but whatever I do is still within my capacity.
right? But like, is it possible like that this potential will be at some point more revealed, or like?
Yeah, through working on things, it becomes more revealed. Through learning, through learning a lot, a person's brain gets more developed. Through working on my character traits, I become a more refined person. I become a more sensitive person. We could work on ourselves. But even that is a certain sort of capacity that everybody else has. So I'm expected to develop whatever I can of my potential, and you're expected to develop what you can of your potential. That's what I mean by capacity.
Right, but like sometimes people are like putting like class they could do, like how not to fool yourself with like, oh, I could, like, you know how we're like sometimes like there's more that we could actually do, or like sometimes there's less that we could actually do.
So of course, it's an area where a person could make a mistake. Could be underestimating themselves, thinking they could do more and really not, or they could exaggerate, either they could exaggerate, think they could do more and they really can't, or sometimes they underestimate themselves, that they think they can do and they really could. Very often people would tell the Rebbe, I'm having a very hard time with this. And they're very frustrated with the Rebbe's answer. The Rebbe would say, where there's a will, there's a way. You're looking for something more like, Rebbe, tell me to juggle 3 tables and everything will change. No, your guide to matzah. The Rebbe would tell people, if you work hard, you'll get there. The Rebbe wasn't just dismissing the question. He was telling you, you could do it. Just if you work hard, you'll get there. You have the potential. And there are times where the Rebbe told people, not the words, but the concept of you're climbing up the wrong tree. This is not for you. Okay, we'll stop here. And you probably all know that I wanted to mention today is the Iyar of the Rebbe's brother, and his name was Rabbi Aryeh Leib. And I put something on the table. Mrs. Jaffa will bring it up. You can read a little bit about him. Just want to mention one thing was that his brother lived in England, and when he passed away, the Rebbetzin Chana, his mother, lived in America. She went through the difficulties in Russia. Her husband, Rabbi Yitzchak, ended up passing away from being, from being sent off to wherever he was in those places, which was just poison. And of course, she had nachas from seeing the Rebbe, but her heart was broken. She was already, older. The Rebbe did not want his mother to find out that her son passed away. So the Rebbe would come visit her every day like he always did. He had to wear sneakers because he's in Avelis. So he has someone to take black shoe polish and paint it all black. She wouldn't notice it. His visits were a little bit shorter. And then he wrote letters to his mother in his brother's handwriting, sent it to England, and from England they sent it back to America. And then she would write and they would correspond. And somebody who was very close there said the Rebbetzin was a very smart woman. He suspects that she knew something, and she pretended that she didn't know, so the Rebbe shouldn't be upset. And the Rebbe hoped that she didn't know. So basically, but that what the Rebbe did until his passing, until her passing, which is like another maybe 12 years, the Rebbe kept writing letters back and forth. Then the Rebbe didn't want her to, when people go to England to visit him, come back with regards. So he wrote a letter in his name that he got a job in this place where it's very high security and he's not allowed to meet anybody. So she shouldn't suggest anyone to come visit him. So that shouldn't happen. That was the Rebbe's kibbutz away. Okay.